Welcome to The Power and the Pain, where your past isn't your prison.
It's the fuel for your purpose.
I'm Greg Pihs, combat veteran, NLP trainer, and your guide to turn trauma into triumph. This is The Power and the Pain. Let's go. Welcome back to The Power and the Pain. This week, we're going to be talking a little bit about communication. We're going to be talking about communication. We're going to be communicating about communication. I want to share a little bit of information with everyone on creating clarity in our communication. Most miscommunications, arguments, disruptions, inability to see eye to eye. Most of this has to do with our sloppy communication. If we became more conscious of how we were communicating with each other, we would naturally make more connections, make deeper connections, and we would find a lot less stress, arguing, and of course, miscommunications. So we're going to talk about a few key points that are going to help you create clarity in your communication to avoid miscommunications and to create much more depth in your relationships. So there's three key points that we're going to talk about today that are going to help you create clarity in your communication. And the first one is in NLP, there's a saying that says, the map is not the territory. And that is to say, words have an inherent meaning as far as Webster goes. And most of us probably could not quote the meaning or definition of the words that we're using. Think about that. What's the definition of a definition? Well, whatever I'm about to say next, as I try to explain the definition of a definition, would be my map. It would be the best I could do to articulate the territory, and the territory would be whatever Webster says the actual definition of the word definition is. Okay. But we don't speak and we don't choose our words based on awareness of what Webster said the word meant. And the person receiving our message, communication, or words also is not receiving it based on their understanding of what Webster says the definition or meaning is. We all do it, and we don't really pay attention to it. We let it happen in the background, so we become so unconscious of it. We use words with internal meaning to them, with internal intent, with internal inflection. And we want the other person to understand our territory, what we are intending, what our inflection is, what we meant by that word when we said that word, which, by the way, is nothing more than just a sound. We want the other person to understand the way we meant it. And again, because this happens so much in the background, we are so unconscious to the fact we completely forget that they have no bearing for our territory. They have no bearing for what we meant when we made that sound or chose that word in our communication. In fact, the only bearing they have for that word or that sound that we shared with them is what it means to them inside or their territory. So I have a territory inside what I actually mean, and then I'm creating a map with the words that I'm sharing. They're taking my map, and then they're looking at it from their territory as what they would mean if they used those words. And we're all, to say unconscious of this, I mean, we have complete ability to be aware of it, but we just don't pay attention to this. It happens in the background. So when I tell someone a message, when I speak to them, if I do so sloppy and unconscious, I may even allow myself to get frustrated. How don't they understand what I meant? There's a book called The 1 Minute Manager. It's a great book. It's worth a read if you haven't read it before. And they talk about this topic in this book in a different nature. But they talk about the topic in this book and what is fast, slow, big, short, small, clean, messy, neat, quickly, sharp. They're not universally inherent. What clean is to you is not the same territory for each person. Big, small, sharp, fast, quick, slow. All of these things are not the same territory. In fact, we all have vastly different internal meanings for what clean, fast, quick, slow, big, what all these things mean. If I were to ask you, if I said, hey, I want you to clean this office, and I need it to be cleaned by the time I get back. Well, this is how most people communicate. This is how most leaders communicate. We didn't clarify what clean was, and they should know what clean is, right? And we have reasons in our mind why they should know what clean is. I've cleaned it before. They saw when I cleaned it. They've been with me long enough. They know what it looked like the other day when they came in and it was clean. Do they? They came in the other day and it was clean, but did they even realize that? Do we have a conversation about it? Do we say, hey, do you understand this is what clean means? And this is what it needs to look like when it's clean? And even if you had that conversation and they said, yes, this is clean. Yeah, I get it. It's clean. Yeah, I get it. What is it? We're back to map and territory. I get it. What is it that they are getting? For example, did you move the furniture when you cleaned and they're looking? And are they tracking when they say, I get it? Are they tracking that furniture was moved? Did you move the items on top of the furniture, the desks and the tables and such? Did you dust? Did you wet dust or did you dry dust? Did you vacuum? Did you mop? Did you wipe down the walls? I literally wiped down the walls, right? Most people will probably be thinking like, wipe down the walls? I used to work in the restaurant industry, and one time I had a district manager come do an inspection of my restaurant, and I thought I had this place like mega buttoned up. I was like standing tall, like I dare you to try to find one thing. Like I fine tooth combed this store, like I'm ready for you. And he checked the whole store, and the whole store was exceptional. But he was not prepared to leave telling me that the store was exceptional. So he reached down on the side of his waist, and I heard him pull some Velcro, and he pulls out this little pen flashlight, and he clicks it and turns it on, like a little baby mag light. And he puts it right up. So if we have this pen flashlight, so this thing of Halls is my pen flashlight. He just puts it right up against the edge of the wall, and he looks up, and you could see all the dust on the wall because he has the light casted up against the wall. It's like, oh, I was not very happy with him that day. Okay, but this guy had the awareness that clean meant there wasn't going to be dust on the walls, and he knew that if the walls weren't wiped, that he would be able to see dust with that flashlight. I had no awareness that to him, clean was going to mean dust on the walls with a flashlight. Some of you are hearing that for the first time. You're like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't work there. I wouldn't. Some of you are hearing this and you're like, I always clean my walls. Of course there's dust on it. And whichever one you are, just realize everyone else exists in the world too. So what is clean and what is it that they're getting? Even if you had a conversation, you said, do you get it? This is clean. And they say, yeah, I get it. Are there area rugs? Did the area rugs get moved? Did they get taken outside and shaken out, or were they vacuumed? What cleaning products were used? all of this matters. And in leadership, we do this thing. We say, hey, I need the room to be clean by the time I get back. And then we also don't tell them how long we're going to be gone. So just by the time I get back. And so I need the room clean by the time I get back. And then our subordinates know, based on working with us in the past, they know that when we get back, we're going to say it's not clean to our standard. Like we're not going to be able to, this is what typically happens in leadership. The leader returns and they say, "What, you didn't vacuum the floor?" And then the subordinate will say, "Oh, I didn't know you wanted me to vacuum the floor." And most times leadership, when they'll come back, what's going on at an unconscious level, the subordinate knows that when the leader comes back, the subordinate knows that they're not actually sure what the leader wants, but obviously this place needs to be tidied. And if the leader has conditioned them in the past that, hey, when they get back, it's not going to be good enough, then the subordinate will do just enough so that when the leader comes back, it shows that effort was taken. But it actually makes sense for the subordinate to do this because they know that no matter how much effort they take, when the leader comes back, the leader's going to give them one more thing that then will make it, one or two more things that then will make it okay. So if I give 1 unit of energy or 100 units of energy, when the leader comes back, I'm going to have to do something else anyway. Let me do the least amount of effort that can show the most amount of work. And when he comes back and he lets me know what he wants, I'll tidy it up, then we'll wrap it up. And this is how we condition people to behave for us because of communication. But imagine if you said, imagine if that leader said, "Hey, I'll be back in 15 minutes. And when I get back, I want the floor vacuumed. I want all the furniture pushed back into place. And I want everything dusted and I want the lights turned out. Can you have that done in 15 minutes? Yes, perfect. I'll be back in 15 minutes. What was it? Vacuum the floor, put the furniture back in its place, dust, turn the lights out. Yeah, you got it. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Now, this subordinate knows exactly what needs to be done with specificity. They know the amount of time they have. They know the tasks that need to be completed. Not only can they get all these tasks done in 15 minutes, but they can do a little bit extra. Because when you come back this time, it is clearly extra because you told me A, B, C, D. I also did E. Look, I did E for you. Why weren't your people doing extra before? Well, because no matter how much effort they put forth, there was going to be something else. So no matter how much effort they put forth, it not only was it not extra when they were trying to give you extra, but to them, there was always more. So when we clarify what we're saying and really what we mean in the words that we're saying. So we tell someone like, "Hey, I need you to behave this week." What is behave? Like, talk to that person. Like, "Hey, last week we had A, B, and C. This week, no A, B, and C. I need D, E, and F. D, E, and F have to happen this week, and there must be no A, B, and C. So there's no A, B, C, and there's D, E, and F. Can we agree to that?" So one of the biggest places that we are creating this sloppy communication and these miscommunications are not paying attention to the fact that words don't have inherent singular meanings. If I told you it was snowing outside, and we live in Middle Tennessee, that means something different than if I told you it was snowing outside and we lived in South Dakota. But it's the same words, is it not? How does it mean something different? You see, if we lived in South Dakota and someone says, hey, it's snowing outside, well, for the people that are hearing that for them, it's meaning something like, hey, things that are under 5 feet tall might be missing in the next couple hours. What do we need to secure, bring in, warm up, winterize, protect, get ready? Because in a couple hours, where it's all going to be white outside. Whereas in Tennessee, it's snowing outside. It means one thing. Go grab your camera and get a video because it's not going to happen for 2 more years. We gotta be very mindful and clear that the word we're saying, we all know these English words, but they don't know what you mean. And equally so, you don't exactly know what they mean. So ask them what they mean. Hey, I need you to be nicer to me. I love it. I'm on board. Help me. What kind of things specifically could I do that would let you know that I was being nicer to you? Or I might offer, okay, when I think about being nicer to you, I think about doing this, this, and this instead of this, this, and this. Is that how you see it? Would that be received as nicer if I was doing these versus these? Or is there something else that I'm missing from your model of the world? This allows really clear communication. The other thing we want to look at, I told you I'd give you 3 things today. So let me give you 2 more. The other thing we want to look at is communication always has context and content. When we think about context, think about, oh, by the way, what is context? Let's clarify terms. Let's get our territories a little bit closer to each other. Think about that. The communication is context and content. Okay, Greg, what am I talking about? All right, let's get a little more clear here. Context. When we think of context, consider it like a container? Question mark? The context, when we think of context, like the ability to hold something. By the way, I have no clue what Webster says the definition is of context, but check that out. What I mean, what my territory is. Some of you may have been like, oh, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. Some of your listeners are probably like, what? Why are you calling it context? Or context doesn't mean that. Well, that would just be evidence of that first point that I was sharing. But when I say context, I'm referring to the ability to hold something. The ability to hold something. So if we did not have an ability to encase, when I say hold, to encase something, then it would be anywhere or everywhere. So, for example, if you were having a conversation with me that had no context, I might start saying, you'd say, hey, Greg, how you doing today? And I'd say, did you know that sometimes wolves get kicked out of their pack? And China is called China because the Qin dynasty conquered all the other tribes. What? What are you talking about, Greg? Okay, we're missing context in what I'm talking about, meaning the ability to encase what I'm talking about. So if we can't put it encase it, if we can't hold it in some way, then it just exists out in the open. So if I was going to give you water would be the content that I was going to give you. But if I was going to give you water and I gave it to you in no context, there'd be liquid on the floor. And you'd be like, you didn't give me water? Okay. So if I start talking about China and wolves being kicked out of their pack, well, all the same, like there's the water sitting on the floor that I said I would give you. But it's very useless without context. So if I just start sharing content without context, it really sounds confusing and just a lot of unclarity. Like, what are we even talking about? We know that. Unconsciously, we're aware of that. If I don't give you context, unconsciously, we're aware of, like, what are you talking about, Greg? So we know that context, if we lack it, the conversation makes no sense. So that we're completely aware of, unconsciously and consciously. However, most conversations that you will have, 99% of them, most conversations that you'll have already have context in them somehow. Think about it right now as I speak to you. I don't need to form the context consciously for what I'm talking to you about. You understand the context. And what is the context of what I'm talking about right now? By the way, when I answer that, the map's not the territory. But the context of what we're talking about is the ability to communicate consciously with more clarity and getting rid of miscommunications. So that's the context that I'm talking to you about this, right? But that context was always there, even if I didn't explicitly say it. So what I want to highlight is if a conversation is missing context, we will immediately, like, we won't be able to go further. Our nervous system will say, our neurology will say to us, our unconscious mind will say to us, what are you talking about? We won't even have to think about it. However, when the conversation has context, which is 99% of the time, we are oblivious to the context because we get so sucked into the content. If we allow ourselves, when we have miscommunications, if we could just take a step back and evaluate the context of what's being said, we'll learn so much more about the content of what's being said. Okay. If my wife were to say to me, this is hypothetical. If my wife were to say to me, Xander punched a kid at school today. We're all free and clear of this. Xander was well behaved. If my wife were to say to me, Xander punched a kid at school today. This is content. This is the content. Xander punched a kid at school today. Now, if that's all she said to me, I'm already kind of triggered, as in, like, we're missing context. What are you talking about? What happened? Once I start diving into the context, so the context, Xander hit someone. The context is, how was he able to? So how is this held together? So what if the next sentence is, and by the way, what are you guys thinking? Like, should we be hitting people? Should we not be hitting people? Everyone's territory. In your mind, you're thinking like, well, if someone hit him first, some people are thinking. If he was getting bullied, some of you are thinking. No, you shouldn't hit nobody. We don't, hands, that doesn't solve anything. Some of you are thinking. What if it was in PE and they were doing martial arts? There's some context for you. What if he did an exceptional job striking his opponent just as he was supposed to? There's some context for you. Now, instead of a consequence, Xander's about to get a high five. The content stayed the same. Xander still hit someone at school today. The context in which he hit someone at school today, we shared a few different examples. Was he being bullied? Did someone hit him first? We gave an example of, was he in PE and learning self-defense? Now, that whole story is hypothetical. We're all free and clear of that. And that feels good. We want to ask, and how is so, the word how, the question how, is so much more impactful than why. Instead of why did you hit someone at school today, if I were to ask Xander that question, this would force him to go inside and try to give me the reason from inside. He really upset me. I thought this, I thought whatever the case may be. But if I ask Xander, how did you hit someone at school today? He would have to tell me about the outside circumstances or the context in which the hit happened. How did you hit someone at school today? Well, we were in PE and we were learning martial arts. And we were in partners. And we were told to strike our partner in center chest, right on the pad, on the black dot on the pad. So I looked at the black dot. I pulled my arm back. I flexed my muscles. And I swung forward. And I hit the pad right where I was supposed to. This would be how he hit someone at school today. He would be explaining to me how. As he does, he is sharing context with me. How were you able to hit someone today? Well, I was on my way to lunch and then this thing happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened. Ah, now I have a lot of context for the content, which is going to cue me into a lot more information. It's going to get me a lot closer to the other person's territory or their model of the world. All right, the last tip, trick, tool, thing that I'm going to give you today on clarity and communication. In NLP, there's a saying that says, respect other people's model of the world. You have a model of the world. I have a model of the world. And each 8.2 billion people on the planet have their own individual model of the world. Each person's model of the world is created through perspective. Perspective is quite a wild thing. When you choose to, one, become conscious of your perspective, and two, become curious of the other person's perspective. Instead of seeing perspectives as right or wrong, you may consider just seeing them as different versions. Perspective is the quantification of content based on the context. So the first thing I gave you today was, hey, the content's not always the content. There's a map and there's a territory. There's what they're literally saying to you, and then there's what they're trying to say to you or what they mean inside. So we talked about the content itself, the content that they share with you and what they actually mean by what they're sharing with you. Then we talked about the context. How was this able to be so? What was the situation surrounding this so that it was able to be so? That's really important to know. And now we're talking about perspective, and I said it's the quantification of the content based on the context. The quantification of the content based on the context is the perspective. That can be a little bit hard to digest. Let me share a little metaphor that'll just paint a crystal clear picture for you. The content's milk. Your context is weight. My context is volume. The content is milk. We both get the exact amount of milk, the same amount of content. When you quantify your content, milk, how much do you have? We got the same amount. I don't know. Oh, we need your context in order to quantify your content. Your context is weight. You got 8.6 pounds of milk. That's your perspective. The quantification of your content based on your context becomes your perspective. So you'd say I have 8.6 milk. And then on my side, my content is milk. How much milk do I have? I need the context. My context was volume. So I have 1 gallon of milk. See, perspective was the quantification of the content milk based on the context volume. My perspective is that I got 1 milk. And your perspective is that you got 8.6 milk. We both got the exact same amount of milk. Now we could argue. No, you have the same amount of milk as me. You must have 1 milk. What are you talking about? It's 8.6 milk, Greg. Remember on the last tip I gave you. This is why we need to clarify context, because it's going to really help us gain perspective. We want to be real clear on what our perspective is. I need to know, if I don't know that my perspective is based on the context of volume, if I don't know that, even if I know factually your perspective is based on the context of weight, it does me no good because I don't know the conversion for me if I don't know my perspective. If you want to be a powerful, conscious, influential, clear communicator, always know your intent and your perspective of what you're sharing while maintaining curiosity of the other person's perspective. I'm curious to know, what is your perspective? And once you share it with me, I have 8.6 milk, Greg. That's my perspective. Now I want to know, what is the context that allowed you to come up to that perspective? I'm curious, what's your perspective? I want to know 8.6. Understanding your context is weight, cool. But what's your perspective? It's the quantification of content based on context. 8.6, okay, I was curious, what's your perspective, 8.6? Huh, what's the context that allowed you to arrive at that 8.6? Weight, So you have 8.6 pounds of milk? Ounces, grams, pounds. Okay, yeah, pounds of milk, okay. Have you ever considered measuring milk in any other way? Or do you know anyone that's ever measured milk in any other way before? See, right now, what I know is we both have the same amount of milk. You don't have to see the milk the way I see the milk. I could just fold right here and say, okay, got it. Oh, cool. Yeah, 8 yeah, me too. You said you have 1 milk. Well, I have 1 gallon of milk, but it actually equates to 8.6 pounds of milk. So yeah, we have the same amount of milk. So I can just come over to your side once I know your and my perspective. Or if it's important, I can just talk to you and create awareness for other perspectives and see if you're willing to shift. Hey, your context for your perspective is weight. Do you know anybody that measured milk in any other ways? What other kind of ways did they measure it? What was the purpose for measuring in those ways? Have you ever considered measuring your milk in any other context? What would it be like if you measured it in this context? Is it fair to say we both also have 1 gallon of milk? You do have 8.6 pounds of milk. Would it be fair to say we also have 1 gallon of milk? Yeah. Look at that influence taking place. Come on now. All right, those three tips for you guys. I'm going to do a quick little recap for you. These are real simple things for you to take out in the world. That first one is, listen, when people talk, we say, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. If I can give you anything, like the big takeaway here is, don't know what people mean. Literally don't know what they mean. Like, I don't care how sure you are. Ask them, what do you mean? How? Second one, context is the situation that surrounds the circumstances that surround the situation. You always want to get clear on the context or the situation around the circumstances because it changes the circumstances. Xander hit someone at school. Did the circumstances not change a lot when it was PE and self-defense? He still hit someone at school. Content stays the same. And that last piece that I want to give you is be aware everyone has their own perspective. The other person's perspective may be absurdly close to yours. And The other person's perspective may be absurdly far away from yours. Every person you meet, every person you talk to, don't think that some people have weird perspectives. Instead, know everyone has a unique perspective. So what is my perspective on this conversation? Okay, got it. And in order to get my perspective, I need to know the content and the context and the quantification. Got it. And then I want to be curious about their perspective. How are they quantifying this? What do they see as the context of the content they're sharing with me? And how do they quantify that? They quantify it as good, bad, happy, sad, angry. How do they quantify that? Once I understand that, then I can work on shifting their perspective or mine. All right. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell your friends. And by the way, I am looking for guests to be on The Power and the Pain. I'm looking for entrepreneurs that have experienced childhood trauma and are open and willing to share raw and vulnerably so that other people can be impacted by their story. You do not have to have major success. You can be early in your journey, in the middle of your journey, have conquered your journey, just launching your business, 7, 8, 9, 10-figure business, all the above. What's really important, the key important piece here is I'm looking for entrepreneurs, childhood trauma, and willing to share raw and vulnerably. So if you know anyone like that or that's you, make sure you reach out, greg@gregpihs.com. I'll see you guys next week.
If this hit you deep, trust that.
Your pain has power, and your story isn't over.
Follow, share, and send this to someone who you think might benefit.
I'm Greg, and this was The Power and the Pain. Keep stepping into your power.